time looking up and pointing their cameras into the night.
There's some more over there, look.
Some could be optical illusions, planes that seem closer than they are.
You can hear that one. That is definitely a plane.
But others have defied normal explanation.
What the
Car-sized drones operating for hours in restricted airspace and able to elude local law enforcement when they send their own drones up to give chase. In New Jersey, the Army reporting the Picatinny Arsenal has had 11 unauthorized drone incursions in the last month.
Look what's back again. Same spot as last night.
21 local mayors now demanding answers from the state.
The minute you get eyes on them, they go dark. This is something we're taking deadly seriously.
The entire month before that, it was nightly drone incursions over Langley Air Force Base.
Let's just start with current events.
Today, a congressional hearing on Capitol Hill on the national security threat drones pose.
What is going on in New Jersey?
We're investigating, but I don't have an answer of who's responsible for that, of one or more people that are responsible for those drone flights.
But for those who see them on a nightly basis,
Not a plane. That is a drone in the airspace.
the drones are a very real reminder
Almost hear a little bit of a hum.
that our airspace
It's a very little thermal signature.
is not as secure as we might hope.
All right, so there's a big difference between me going outside or someone else going outside that doesn't really have training and looking up, and those cops that went outside and were looking up, and then a mayor of Mine Hill Township, Sam Morris, who went outside as well, and he saw something weird. Mayor Morris, thanks so much for being with us. Can you walk us through exactly what you've seen in your skies and what's being done about it?
Sure. Of course, I was aware of this issue, but last Tuesday night it kind of came full force into my life with a resident who I know well, lives a block from me, reported to me that there were 8 drones over our school and municipal complex, which are on the same block. So I got in my car and went around there. And by the time I got around here, they were not overhead anymore. So I went into, there's a field behind our town hall that has a lot less light pollution. It's a park. And when I went in there, I could see a series of, it was like a stationary drone. It was sitting still and 3 drones going back and forth in a north-south pattern. They would go to the north a certain distance, stop, and turn back around, almost like somebody farming a field or, something like that. And that's what really got me a little hyper-focused on all this, because I saw it personally and videoed it personally.
So you saw it, were you able to kind of track them? How big did they look? How fast were they moving? Any details there?
Well, they aren't, when they're doing whatever they're doing, they aren't really moving particularly fast. I can't estimate speed, but they're not like, oh man, that was rocketing across the sky. They're going very methodically with a plan. And you can see that. You can see that they aren't just whizzing around, there are people that have drones and they just fly willy-nilly, so to speak. These are very methodical in their flight path, and it looks very planned.
It looks very planned, and in certain places it is very illegal, especially Picatinny Arsenal is very close to you. You've got Bedminster also out there in New Jersey.
Yep.
There are TFRs. Some of them are over airports, just hovering there. You'd think that if it's illegal and someone is breaking the law, the cops or some authority would be able to go out there and very quickly figure out who's doing this. Has that been the case at all?
No, there's a lot of rules on that, but I'm gonna be a little bit, after watching Robert Wheeler's testimony today, I'm kind of fed up, and I'm part of that group of mayors that authored a pair of letters on Sunday, trying to bring more focus to this, and we did. I genuinely think it's time to start harvesting drones and stop worrying about the rules. Whoever's running these drones, they're not worried about the rules. They're using the rules against us, and that's always, it happens in a civilized society. But whatever they're doing, they don't care what the rules are. 11 drones, it's been admitted now, 11 drones have gone over Picatinny Arsenal, which is about 5 miles from here in a direct line. Those drones should have been blown out of the sky. Why are we putting up with this? Why are we putting up with this?
You're not talking about like the TFR temporary flight restriction rules. You're talking about literally just blasting them out of the sky.
They have Picatinny Arsenal is a weapons development center. Okay, it's a high-tech place. It's in a rural area, which is it's beautiful, but it's a high-tech place. If you're the bad guys, you want to know what's going on in Picatinny. They went into Picatinny's airspace. That's a violation of the law. It has to be. I don't have the chapter and verse of the U.S. Code, but if I did that and they came back and tracked that I put a drone over, or an average person, somebody put a drone over, we'd be in big federal trouble. I don't know why they even put up with letting them go over like that. And then my understanding, Langley, and then several other bases in New Jersey, they're doing that. What I don't really understand is the testimony from the FBI today. He said, well, the FAA has rules about what we can do and how we can engage these drones. Well, is the FAA going to come and arrest the FBI if they take care of the little business? I mean, give me a break. These things can be brought down, and I've been saying this all week. These drones have a battery life. They have to come back to the Earth at some point, and somebody's controlling them. Just follow them to where they're going. I know they're saying, oh, they go dark. Well, we have high tech. We have night vision. We have tracking devices. We can track onto one of these drones in a helicopter and follow it anywhere it goes. Even if it goes dark, you can follow it. So we have extreme technology in our military. They need to go do that. We need to get to the bottom of this, because what my residents are reporting to me, and all the other mayors in all the other counties in Jersey are reporting to them, they don't feel comfortable or safe with people over their head who are not regulated. Everybody knows a plane's going to go by, everything like that. But this has gotten ridiculous. And this testimony today was horrible.
And Mr. Mayor, one question. Is there a chance that this is something from Picatinny or something that the U.S. military is testing that they may not want to share? Or have you been assured?
Well, sure, that's not the case? The guy in my position doesn't know any of that. And unfortunately, residents think, because you're the mayor, you know everything. Well, you really know. You really don't. We're really befuddled. But I can tell you, Picatinny's close enough to hear that a lot of people, Picatinny, they've been going around Picatinny looking. That was for one of the first instincts was, they're coming out of Picatinny and going back in there. And people then have said, I went and sat near Picatinny at night. I sat in the park near there. I sat on a road near there. There's no activity. These drones pop out around 5:30 and they go till 11 or midnight. They're not hiding themselves. They're out when people are out, and they're not around that military base in a volume, that anybody's picked up on.
Yeah, the lights on those drones continues to just baffle my mind. If you're being, nefarious, why would you have lights? Or are you trying to spy? You have red and green lights that are just very.
If I could share with you, there was one in Mine Hill that I think it was Sunday. I think it was Thursday night of last week. A lady called me about it. It was just sitting. I don't know how far, but let's go a quarter mile from my house. And I videoed it, but it came out grainy. But I watched it with my own eyes. Red, green, red, green, red, green. And it was sitting perfectly still. No plane. And it was, 200-300 feet up. And it just sat there. We don't know what it was doing, but it just sat there. So this is definitely by plan. It's just a matter of whose plan. And I think we need to get our hands on a few. And if they need to get a court order to do it, the FBI needs to go get a court order to do it. But there's enough of this for everybody.
Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. Speaking
Thank you for having me.
That a lot of people want to hear. Mayor, thanks.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.
Dear Christians, I'm a psychologist. Sometimes we get confused by our emotions, but we can always pray and ask the Holy Spirit for guidance. I have prayed thousands of times through the KJV Bible. The download is free and there are no ads. KJV Bible allows you to get closer to God and learn God's Word without internet. Most importantly, you can actually study your various moods through the KJV Bible. Download now.
whatever you do it for less at Harbor Freight.
Right now on Morning News Now, looking for dismissal. President-elect Trump is pushing once again to get his New York hush money case tossed out. We'll tell you about his argument this time concerning President Biden's pardoning of his son Hunter. This comes as Mr. Trump's pick for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth faces more scrutiny, with current and former Fox News employees speaking out about Hegseth's alleged drinking habits. We'll bring you the details. In the spotlight, the Supreme Court is set to hear oral arguments today in a case involving restrictions to transgender care. The first time the justices are considering a law restricting transition-related health care for minors. We'll preview the day. And guess what? Today is National Cookie Day. And to celebrate, we are speaking to the woman in charge at award-winning bakery chain Milk Bar for the latest installment of our series, Women Mean Business. And it's got a holiday twist. And finally, mind your manners. With the holiday season now upon us, companies across the U.S. are starting to host holiday parties. We will share tips on how you can enjoy yourself while also staying professional around coworkers. Hint, be careful with an open bar.
Exactly. There's that. Even just the decision of whether to go in the first place is something that you might be weighing or considering.
Yep.
Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for kicking off your Wednesday with us. We're going to begin this morning with the new push by President-elect Trump to get his criminal conviction dismissed in the New York hush money case in the wake of the pardon of Hunter Biden.
In a court filing Tuesday, Mr. Trump and his lawyers pointed to President Biden's rationale for pardoning his son. They argued that Trump has been subject to the same kind of political prosecution as Hunter. Mr. Trump's lawyers wrote, quote, "As President Biden put it, enough is enough. This case, which should have never been brought, must now be dismissed." As for the Trump transition, another cabinet pick has dropped out, this one facing pushback from conservatives. Chad Chronister, his choice to lead the Drug Enforcement Agency, withdrew his name last night, citing the gravity of the job. And his Defense Department pick, Pete Hegseth, is also in jeopardy, with a growing number of senators not comfortable supporting his nomination. Well, now a new report from the Wall Street Journal suggests that Mr. Trump is looking for a replacement. NBC News has not independently confirmed this report, but we have reached out to the Trump transition team, and we'll keep you updated as we learn more. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hillier joins us now from West Palm Beach, Florida. Vaughn, good to have you with us. So let's start in the courtroom with the hush money case. Mr. Trump and his lawyers trying to make a couple new arguments to get this case dismissed before he even takes office. Tell us, what's in this new filing?
Did you know you can get 40% off a single pair of glasses at America's Best? These savings won't last forever, unlike your eternal elation. Okay, settle down. Shop online or book an exam at americasbest.com.
Right. This all comes, we're a month and a half away from Donald Trump's inauguration at this point. And the filing was due yesterday by Donald Trump's attorneys, Todd Blanche and Emil Bove, who we should note Donald Trump has nominated already to be the number 2 and number 3 position holders at his incoming Department of Justice. But in this filing to Judge Merchan, they argued that the entire verdict, the entire case should be tossed out against Donald Trump, largely on the grounds of the immunity decision by the Supreme Court earlier this summer, in which they made the case that Donald Trump was immune from some of the evidence that was brought before the jury that ultimately found him guilty, and therefore it tainted the jury's decision-making process when they found him guilty on those 34 felony counts. But they also notably made reference to Joe Biden's pardoning of his own son, Hunter Biden, and the fact that Joe Biden made the case in his decision to pardon that his son was being politically targeted by the DOJ for his selective prosecution. Quote, President Biden asserted that his son was selectively and unfairly prosecuted and treated differently. Since DA Bragg took office, he has engaged in precisely the type of political theater that President Biden condemned. Those were the attorneys for Donald Trump, arguing that the former president and president-elect was unfairly targeted by the Manhattan district attorney for falsification of business records charges that ultimately the jury found him guilty of, and they want the case tossed.
Vaughn, the DA's office has floated postponing rather than tossing the case until after the end of Trump's term. How is Trump's legal team arguing against that? And also, Vaughn, I mean, when could we see some kind of resolution?
Exactly. This upcoming Monday is the deadline for the District Attorney Alvin Bragg's prosecutors who brought these charges against Donald Trump and the case against him to file their own response to this filing yesterday from Donald Trump's attorneys to argue, if they so desire, that the case and the decision to find him guilty should not be tossed out, and instead that sentencing should proceed. Now, Judge Merchan has already indefinitely suspended the sentencing of the president-elect, but he could make the decision as soon as next week that he intends to sentence Donald Trump even before Inauguration Day. Now, of course, he could potentially give him time served, and so he ultimately faces effectively no consequences, but those 34 felony counts still stand. And yet he could also potentially try to stave off or make a decision to move his sentencing back all the way until after Donald Trump leaves office in 2029, which Donald Trump's attorneys argue would be, in their words, ridiculous, seeing as how the investigation into him would have begun a decade earlier, back in 2018, a long span of time.
Yvonne, let's talk about the Trump transition and the turmoil around some of his cabinet picks. Chad Chronister withdrew his name from consideration last night. Now, this is not a name dominating the headlines the same way as a Pete Hegseth or a Matt Gaetz. So talk about his background and why he dropped out.
Right. This has been a busy few weeks down here in Palm Beach as Donald Trump rolled out these announcements one after the other, quite in quick order. And in the scenarios of each of these picks, didn't go through the typical FBI background checks. And there were some who questioned the vetting process of some of these individuals. Chad Chronister specifically has been a part of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department in the greater Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg area for 28 years. He's the sheriff, and that's who Donald Trump selected to be the head of the Drug Enforcement Administration. He's also the son of the former San Francisco 49ers owner, a major donor to Donald Trump. Somebody, though, who came since his selection to be the nominee for DEA, the head of DEA 3 days ago, came under a lot of scrutiny, particularly by conservatives on the right who referenced back in 2020 his COVID protocols and his decision to have a pastor who was flouting COVID protocols arrested. Those charges were ultimately dropped against the pastor, but there was a lot of reticence towards his selection. And just 3 days later, he took his own self out of the running, which now means that two individuals have taken themselves out of this, including Matt Gaetz. Of course, Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary nominee, is up on Capitol Hill this week here, trying to protect his own nomination under serious questions of whether he could pass the confirmation process coming up.
Pushback from the right and the left for some of these picks. All right, Yvonne, thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, let's turn now to the new allegations that are threatening the nomination of Trump's defense secretary pick, as we've been discussing, Pete Hegseth.
In an exclusive report from NBC News, 10 current and former Fox News employees spoke out about Hegseth's relationship with alcohol, telling NBC that his drinking habits worried them. NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Cubey has more on our team's reporting.
Joe and Savannah, we spoke with 10 current and former Fox News employees who detailed a pattern of behavior by Pete Hegseth when he was host of the popular weekend morning show Fox and Friends that included showing up to the show sometimes only minutes before it was actually on the air at 6 a.m., talking about being hungover, talking about being up all night or barely sleeping at all, and at times even still smelling of alcohol from the night before. Now, these individuals could not point out a specific time where this impacted him actually showing up for the show or actually was really visible on the air. But they did talk about the stress it caused to the staff on that show. People being concerned he wouldn't show up at all, he would oversleep, or worried about him simply not being prepared for the show. At times, even having to have his makeup done on the set only moments before they went on the air. Again, this is 10 current and former Fox News employees